Stay in your lane.
Welcome to the Mind Your Own podcast with Aaron Sorensen and Sasha Durkin, where we stick to sports, except when we're not.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mind Your Own podcast. I'm Erin.
I'm Sasha.
And I am seeing you in person for the first time in a while. Of course, on like the busiest week of our lives.
Yeah. This week is just, Mondays have turned into just insanity. And then subsequently then Tuesdays do. And I'm moving this week.
Oh,
and so I'm like,
yeah. Yeah, this is the start of spring football, which is an adjustment because we do actually get in person.
Yeah.
So that's something. And on top of it, we have volleyball, baseball, softball, soccer, you name it. Every sport that normally would be a little bit more spread out in a year they're all colliding in this first week. And I feel completely unprepared. But, sometimes it is baptism by fire. We'll get through the week.
Yeah. Like that's just how I accept it anymore. Like it's just how it is and we'll get through it and try to be as balanced as possible.
Yeah. Well, what's wild for me to think about, so this week was actually supposed to be my second wedding date. So after our initial wedding date was postponed, this upcoming Saturday, April 3rd, should have been the postponed date. So I'm imagining my life at this point if that was actually taking place on Saturday. We have since postponed once again, which I feel really good about because you don't know, like when we postponed originally, we postponed like 13 months.
Right.
But we could not have predicted that, what life would have looked like 13 months down the road. We were looking at, I remember at the time, people were like, oh, things will be better by fall. I remember when we pushed out as far as we did, people thought we were being overly, you're being too cautious. It's going to be great by fall.
Right.
So I'm glad that we at least went as far as we did. But, we've talked a little bit about this. Had we moved forward with this time point, things are starting to get a little bit better, but not significantly enough that I don't think I would have felt great about it personally. Obviously, for anyone who, for the record, by the way, if you are listening to this and you have yet to get your COVID vaccine and you want it, I want to just tell you, if you are in Nebraska, you are eligible. If you are over 18, go find that appointment. It is all online. There's a website called vaccinespotter.org. Pick your state. A lot of you, if you are not in Nebraska, are eligible now and don't realize it. But in Nebraska specifically, as of this week, if you are over 18, there are certain pharmacies that are enrolled in the federal program that are eligible to start vaccinating you. This is important because they had 60,000 doses sitting in storage for this program. You are not taking it from anyone. Go get your vaccine. I want to tell you, as somebody who has gotten onto the list for volunteering opportunities in Douglas County, they are still vaccinating on that end. So there are vaccines to be had. Go get your vaccine. Yeah. If you have the opportunity to do it, get your vaccine. So I just wanted to throw that out there because as we are looking at what could have been our wedding week, people still wouldn't have had wide access to a vaccine, which is a big piece for me. So now when we're looking at our next date, I feel very comfortable that by that point, people will have had the ability and availability to get a vaccine to protect themselves. If you choose not to at that point, that's no longer on me, because you have had the opportunity.
Right.
So long story short, many of you are eligible wherever you live, but especially in Nebraska, 18 and over. Go get that vaccine. And if you need help, honestly, I'm not kidding. I mean this. If you need help getting an appointment or finding one, shoot us an email at mindyourownpodcast@hailvarsity.com or tweet at me at Aaron Sorensen. You can tweet at Sasha as well at Sasha72 and she can send you to me. I love this kind of stuff. I love finding solutions. We will get you one. You might have to drive 45 minutes or, whatever, but there are appointments available. So I will get off my soapbox. I just wanted to say, if you are in Nebraska or beyond, make sure if you are looking for one, don't panic. They're becoming available.
Yes.
And I know when demand is high, it makes you feel stress. And then that rub makes you start to feel guilty for wanting something. And then people are like, well, you're not old enough to get it yet. Right now in the state of Nebraska, if you're over 18, there are some pharmacies that are available to you. You're good. Go get that shot.
Yes, for sure.
Shot. That's what I put on my Instagram story after I got mine.
I've been looking and looking and looking, and I can't find an appointment. I've signed up for every single possible, like, please call me when you have an extra dose. Hy-Vee has had no appointments for 4 days now.
I got you.
I've been signing up. I've been trying, but I don't have the luxury to be able to drive either. Yes.
And I will say there is a level of luxury and privilege to this. So there are a lot of people who have like reached out to different, like, I remember after I shared that I got mine, this was so funny. One person told me I was virtue signaling. I was like, I don't think you know what that means. Because no, I'm not. But they have shown that people who share about their shot are more likely to potentially help convince other people or help them find them. So for me, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I have a lot, and I was very careful because who I got mine through was a wait list for the Charles Drew Health Center in Omaha, Nebraska. And they're not a big health center. And so I didn't want to overwhelm. I have over 20,000 followers on Twitter. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, look at me. I'm just saying me tweeting their link out widely like that would have done nothing but create additional chaos in an already chaotic situation. So if anyone reached out to me, whether it was email, DM, whatever, I gave the link freely in that case. I just wasn't going to go give it like, hey, everyone, free for all, because then some random person who lives in Texas is like, I'm going to open this list and look at it. And, you don't need to crash a server. You don't need to do that. But yeah, I understand that there's a privilege in even my time to find these things. Because I spent probably one evening, I'm not even joking, I probably spent 6 hours one night, just what they call is vaccine hunting. Yeah. Just looking for every possible opportunity, because I really had a goal in mind that by Nebraska's spring game, I wanted to be vaccinated. Because I'm like, if things are going to start opening back up, I want to protect myself. Yep. And media is like technically eligible in some places and some not, but like I didn't fully understand where I was eligible and where I wasn't. So I was like, I'm just going to find a wait list or something. Yeah. And again, I understand that there was a privilege that I had being able to spend that time, because there are a lot of people who are like, I don't have that time. I don't have the resource to do that. I don't even know what I'm looking for. So like I said, if you are somebody who is like, I am just struggling, I don't know where to begin. First and foremost, if you don't want to email or tweet at us, that's totally fine. My recommendation would go to this website, vaccinespotter.org. But if you do want some help, or you just want some feedback on like how I was able to get onto the wait list I'm on, which unfortunately right now is closed, please reach out, because there's so many opportunities. You could volunteer if you have the time. Volunteers are eligible to get their shots once they start. There are pharmacies in different areas that have opened up to individuals. So if you're comfortable and want some help or want some feedback just on how to kind of do this, feel free to reach out. I am more than happy to help you, because like I said, that is something that it almost like filled this void for me that I do with like travel booking, where like I get super into like the details of like, all right, I'm over here on kayak and now I'm over here on this site and I'm going to find the best deal. Like I love that kind of stuff. So like for some reason this filled some weird void in my life where I was like, I can go like search and find the best like options. But I learned a lot, which is that this situation is chaotic. This whole thing is chaotic. And if you feel overwhelmed by it, I understand, and you are not alone. Do not feel bad one bit if you feel overwhelmed, because it is just a chaotic mess, but there is some light. The biggest thing is like, just keep being smart, wear your mask. We are so close. Yeah. Even the CDC director said, we are so close. She said this like yesterday, but also cautioned, because people are wanting so badly to just be like, to throw all caution in the wind. We don't need that just yet, but if we can just like hang on just a little bit longer, I promise, like sports are going to look the way you want to. I mean, sorry, I'm on a rambling mess, but like I went to baseball this weekend and I thought Nebraska did a great job, and there was like 1,600 fans at the game that I went to, and I did not feel uncomfortable. I thought everyone did a good job. Things are getting better. Just let's keep focused. Let's keep on doing what we do so we can get back to normal.
Yeah.
The light is there. We can see it. Let's not put the car in reverse.
Right.
Let's keep going forward. We got this. That's my rambling mess on that today. I can't help it.
I'm excited, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Me too.
It's just we've been patient for over a year. We can be patient a little bit longer.
Some of y'all have not been so patient, and I'm coming for you. No, yeah, I am ready to just even being outside gives me such I know winter was tough, but just being outside has been such a place of peace.
Yeah.
Even going to that baseball game, and I there are fans at softball as well. It wasn't a packed Haymarket Park by any means, but there were a good number, and it was nice to be somewhere and to feel some sense of camaraderie where there were people around, and we're getting there. We are getting there. Just hang on a little bit longer. I promise. We will be there before y'all know it.
Yes. Yeah. Just hang on.
Well, on that note, as we always say, a lot of times you inspire our episodes because you either email us, which again, we're at mindyourownpodcast@hailvarsity.com, or you message us, and that's great because a lot of times when you inspire those, I feel like it creates the best conversation. So that is what this episode is. Not that whole fart. That is where my brain is this week. That whole part before, oh my gosh. That was just me rambling. But this part is actually from Sky. He shared on Twitter. He wanted to get so full transparency with my job. I run most of Hail Varsity's social media empire. And I did use empire intentionally because it is an empire. No, I have long had a career in social media marketing, even in addition to the side of journalism that many of you know me for. I have helped brands in nonprofit spaces. I have helped brands, small businesses, build their brands to be successful, hopefully, on social media. And this is something that I love just as much as anything else. That's why I get really into the name, image, and likeness stuff, which we've been promising you for months and we'll eventually talk about. Maybe this summer. We're getting close. But that also comes with its challenges to be behind this. And now, Sasha, you also, and I should say personal brands are also big on this, but with Meathead Test Kitchen, you have those brands that you are actively behind, and even Hurrdat Media having input on those things. These are brands that need nurturing. They need people real people physically behind them to make them go. Exactly.
Well, we've had this conversation before too about specifically on Twitter, brands on Twitter and how they manage those accounts. And their replies. I think of Wendy's often when we think of these things because they've very much positioned themselves as being pretty funny on Twitter.
As
and that's part of their brand.
To myself.
Right. Yeah. But there's a lot that goes into it. That isn't just one person that's managing that account. That's a team of people. It's a corporation. So we've said this before too, when you are responding to people, there is physically a person behind that, but you're not you need to keep those things in mind. It's not the anonymous internet. There are people behind these accounts that manage these things. There are likely teams behind these accounts.
And so, yes, that's the thing. It's first and foremost, remember that that you are interacting with people. And sometimes I think some people get it because they're hey, everyone, behind this account, appreciate what you're doing. Got a question for you or whatever. And it's always really funny because it kind of breaks, what is it, the fourth wall?
Yes. Yep.
So that, for the record, that happens every so often with Hail Varsity where somebody will tweet at Hail Varsity and be hi, Aaron. I'm don't do that. When I'm tweeting from Hail Varsity or if I'm behind that account, I'm no longer Aaron. Don't do that. I feel seen, I'm No, but what prompted this question from Sky, and I thought it was a really, really interesting conversation, is Nebraska volleyball prior to its weekend series, or it was like a Thursday, Friday series with Michigan, tweeted, posted on Facebook and Instagram, 2 photos. One of the court on the scene in Ann Arbor, and then one of Lauren Stivrins getting off of the bus. Lauren Stivrins is getting off the bus. She's holding a Gatorade bottle. She has her mask on. You can see the team behind her walking into the arena, and she has her shirt it's from this past summer, the rally that happened. They had shirts that say Black Lives Matter. It's a gold lettering on a black shirt. Pretty simple photo. It's Lauren Stivrins getting off of the bus. She just happens to be wearing this shirt. And people very quickly noticed on Twitter that Nebraska volleyball limited who could reply. The only people who could reply is anyone that Husker volleyball mentioned, which if you look at the tweet, they mentioned 0 people. So some people started quote tweeting it and were like laughing at the fact that they did this. And some people also got it where they're like, so for instance, one response said, unfortunately, the comments had to be muted, but that's what makes this shirt even hotter. I mean, people, and I'm sad they had to mute the replies, proud of them for spreading the message. I saw a lot of discussion on Twitter around whether or not this is like creating like, around the conversation it was creating, because here's the thing. You look at it on Twitter and you're kind of like, oh, that's unfortunate that they had to, limit it, but I get it. You go to Facebook and Instagram and it's a little bit of a different story. Now I want to provide some context. Initially, when I looked right after they had shared this on Twitter, the comments on Facebook and Instagram were great. I think it was a ton of support. It was mostly focused less around anything else other than go get him. Yeah. Go get him. Go beat Michigan. Be amazing. Which, by the way, stop calling them Lady Huskers. We also have an episode on that. You can go back and listen to it. Anyway, I appreciated the fact that I'm like, as a social media manager, and I could be wrong because I'm completely projecting. So Nebraska, the team of individuals who run everything for Nebraska might be like, no, that just was how the comments were. I kind of had a feeling that they may have been hiding some of the comments initially, because when they first shared it, I mean, knowing when we share anything on social media, I'm like, the fact that they're all so positive makes me think that something has been hidden. But once the game started and the attention started to shift away to game updates, that's when the bad comments started coming. And that was when I started to kind of figure they have had to move their resources into focusing on the game itself and are not just monitoring these posts now. So here's kind of what the questions were. What was the decision to make it private? The issues with online hate. The issue, so I have absolutely no issue at all with Nebraska sharing that photo of Lauren Stivrins. And I want to be clear, she had no issue with it either, because 1, she's wearing the shirt, but 2, she very, very clearly shared that photo herself and was like, let's do this again. Because here's the thing, this isn't the first time her or anyone else have gotten blowback for wearing a shirt or for speaking up. So she says this and then she puts period on her Instagram, like basically done. You're not coming and having any other thoughts on this. Like, this is what I'm saying. Listen, and I'm period, done. Yeah. So here, like, I have no issue with Nebraska sharing this. I also don't understand the comments that come to something like this that are inherently or they're immediately like, keep politics out of sports, because we have had this conversation before. Sports are political. Everything we talked about last week with the NCAA and how it has treated women's basketball, which I hope you've been paying attention over this last week, because as it has been coming out, revenue is not the issue here. It has never been. So if you want to talk about politics and sports, how about we talk about how women's sports are treated? Because that is political. What you were saying is, I don't want something in my space. This thing that makes me feel safe and comfortable, that makes me feel uncomfortable. So you're uncomfortable because Lauren Stivrins chose to wear a shirt and she is unapologetic about it. And you know what? Nebraska volleyball supported her by putting that on their account, which they've got a lot of followers. And yes, they knew when they shared that because you don't limit the replies if you aren't expecting what's going to happen.
Yep.
They knew there's going to be some ignorant comments that come along with this. You know, if I'm Lauren Stiverins, I'm probably not reading the comments, but yeah, it would stink if I went to Facebook and saw the comments, but like,
right.
That becomes, so here's where it becomes really tricky is we've run into this with Hale Varsity where people will leave comments and I'm going to just tell you all, the judge and the jury on a lot of this stuff is me. And I'm not talking about Nebraska volleyball. I have no bearing on what they do. But for Hale Varsity, I have to make in a lot of cases a split decision on what to do about something because I do not have the luxury, but actually it's not almost a luxury, even with big marketing teams. Like Nebraska has more than just one person. But even with like Coca-Cola, with all of their people, sometimes more actually like complicates things because you got to send it to this person, this person, this person. Like this team has to.
And then by that point,
lawyers,
it's already out there,
right?
And it's been too long on social media.
So a lot of times, companies equip their social media managers to sort of just make the gut decision. Yep. You tell me, what do you think? And that is a very, very big responsibility because you have to make a judgment call almost instantaneously. Do I do something with this? Because here's why it's important. Facebook's hiding options is amazing. If you can get to a comment fast enough and you can hide it, that person thinks their comment exists without anyone else seeing it.
Exactly.
It's the most amazing thing. But here's the problem with it. So let's say after we posted, okay, this is one of the like most controversial things that has been posted on our Facebook page in the last month. And it is in no way related, for the record, to anything. It is not related to Black Lives Matter at all. So I do not want to make these comparisons. I'm just saying this one topic that got posted where I was like, oh, this is going to be chaotic, was the whole Oklahoma thing. Nebraska with the whole Oklahoma thing. A lot of things were said. A lot of really negative, nasty, like attacks at people kind of stuff. I mean, it was gross. If you don't get to a comment fast enough, which when they're rolling in as quickly as they were, and somebody else likes that comment or somebody responds to that comment, you now are in this weird spot where if I hide it now, the person who responded is like, "Hey, I can't see your comment anymore." Are they hiding them? Are they deleting? Are they censoring us? And then it becomes a thing of like, you now are dealing with this. Right. People screaming in your comment section that you're censoring them. Same thing with Instagram. But Instagram's almost even... No, Instagram is the worst. I was saying this to Sasha before. Yeah. Instagram is the worst of all of them because despite being owned by Facebook, so you'd think that they would just make it the same. Right. Hide the comment. You cannot hide a comment. It is all like retroactive, essentially. So like if somebody leaves a terrible comment and you're like, yep, nope, that's not cool. Your choices are to delete it and then hide comments from that user in the future or just to delete it.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you can do about the current situation, the current comment. So here's the thing. If somebody comes to Instagram and they leave an awful comment, they say something just horrific about Adrian Martinez, where it's like, that's not a constructive comment. It's just bashing a human for existing. I don't really care if you get mad that it's getting deleted because that is just unacceptable. I like, why would you even... why would you leave that comment?
Right, exactly.
But for the record, and this is this is kind of what like Sky wanted to know is like, how do you handle this stuff? Like, how do you go about these things? One, picking the photos or the content that you're going to share. But then how do you like handle something like this happening?
Yep. The
only thing I can really do is set myself up to be able to remove a comment or a person if they are. And so if you go to our Facebook page, which no one reads the additional information, but you should sometime because it's on mostly every page that you go to. To protect our community, Hale Varsity will not tolerate offensive or violent language, hateful or discriminatory comments regarding race, ethnicity, religion, gender, disability, sexual orientation, or political beliefs, links or comments containing sexually explicit content material, violations of copyright or intellectual property rights, spam, link baiting, or files containing viruses that could damage the operation of the other person's computer or mobile devices, attacks on specific groups, or any comments meant to harass, threaten, or abuse an individual, commercial solicitation, or the promotion of a competitor. So that's there. And if you come along and you leave a really just horrible comment, more than likely I have the right, based on what we have put in there, as these are our guidelines to be a member of this community.
Right. If you're not taking the time to read those guidelines, that's on you.
And I don't really need to explain it beyond that.
No, I think it's pretty...
And here's the thing. There are people who probably look at Hail Varsity's pages and are like, oh, you could do a better job. Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. The issue I run into is that it's a lot for one person to manage. And there are times where, like, for my own mental health, I have to step away, but then it becomes a bigger issue because it's like, if I step away in a moment of like, this is what's happening, those are the moments that I'm needed the most. But like, to be perfectly clear, it is draining to sit and read really horrible comments over and over and over and over again.
I don't know if anyone's seen this episode or how many of our listeners watch South Park, but they did an episode on this specifically. Basically, Cartman sets up some kind of social media account and forces Butters to read all of the negative comments and delete them for him. This is someone's actual job in real life, though. And it's really difficult. Like, if you get drained just by going to a local news story and reading the comments, think about the people managing those accounts. They have to read this vileness every day, sometimes all day, every day. So, like, mental health-wise, it's incredibly draining.
And then you start to question, like, am I being too sensitive to some things? Am I overreacting to some things? Am I not being harsh enough in what I choose to allow and not allow? There comes a lot of things that, like, ends up coming and falling on me, the social media manager, or anybody who's a social media manager. I have a lot of friends who work in social media, and a friend of mine, she works for an alumni organization, and I'm not going to share what school, but it's an alumni organization that, like, when the football team plays poorly, and this isn't Nebraska for the record,
right.
This is a different school, but just to show you how comparable it is from one school to another, when the football team does, their mentions get blown up.
Yeah.
And they're the alumni association. Like, they have no bearing on what's happening, but, like, when you tweet at, like, there's so many people who tweet at Nebraska football or at Nebraska volleyball or whatever to share their thoughts. Like, the person behind it is, like, John Cook himself. Like, John Cook's opening this and he's like, oh, God forbid we shared that photo of Lauren Stivrins. Oh, I guess let's all have a little meeting over here. Let's all I don't know.
It's I don't really understand the entire, like, I just don't understand tweeting at or interacting with an account in the way that you think that, like, someone above and beyond the social media manager is reading this. Like, really think about that. Like, Scott Frost isn't seeing this. John Cook isn't seeing this. It's the social media manager that's seeing this. They're not seeking out your comment to see how they could do a better job at coaching or which t-shirt to wear or what causes you believe in that you don't think anybody else should believe in. They don't care.
Also, I have to stop myself, and I hope that this comes across as, like, okay, language matters, and I'm really, really upset with myself about this because I almost did it and I caught myself, but, like, when we talk about unlearning things and being mindful of our words, I almost said powwow, that, like, and the reason, for the record, I didn't say it. I stopped myself. But the reason I'm calling myself out right now, and I want to say this to all of you, is I have been told that this is not a word. And I have done the work of actually, like, looking up why that is a word. It's the same thing as spirit animal. There are things that are a part of Native American culture that are not mine to, like, appropriate and to take and to put into other contexts that are not what they are intended for. And I almost did that. I wanted to call myself out here, and it's really like my face is really hot. I need you all to know this. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want you to know that we all screw up. We all make mistakes. And I'm really disappointed that I almost did that. Like, I'm really disappointed, but like Sasha can tell you, like, my eyes are welling up. The reason that I'm really upset with myself with that is that is a choice that I have been making actively to watch the words that I say, because I'm very mindful of, or I try to be mindful, I should say. To say I'm mindful means that I'm perfect, and I'm not. But this is what we need to do, is when those moments happen, stop yourself and ask yourself, why was that the thing that almost came out of my mouth? Right. For me, it's because that is just a natural phrase that has like been used in my lifetime. People around me have used it. That doesn't make it okay. And it doesn't make it okay if I would have said that. So I'm just stopping here really quick to call myself out on that, because I want to make a note that, like, so I've had this actually in the last few weeks, people who I've been like actively trying to change the use of guys, instead of saying you guys, hey guys, you all, everyone, being being more inclusive in my language.
I think about that honestly, that's one of the things that's been like, I've been trying to really work on, because I very much talk like that, and I'm trying not to do that anymore. It's typically, hey there now, every time, just because I understand that, like, we need, as a whole, need to work on the way that we speak to each other. And by shoving people into boxes like guys, you know, there's not, especially if you're talking to a room full of people, it's not all men there. But I'm very much on the same page. I also want to like give some context to, like, I marked that to edit it. And as I was talking, I realized why you stopped. Yeah. And I was like, I totally was on the same page as you, but like, I hadn't even thought of it, but I was like, oh, that's why. I know why.
I want to, like those are those things where I would rather, and here's the thing, if you're somebody listening and you are upset that I almost said that, like, I respect that. And I am not doing this, contrary to my Twitter mentions, I did not do that to virtue signal at all. I really just want to own my own shit. Because the thing is like, it's really easy to edit things out. It's really easy to remove the imperfections or the mistakes or the things that like we don't want people to know about ourselves. I mean, there are things where, like, for instance, I've looked into, like, when I've gone back through my past, like when I think about Cinco de Mayo and how, like, when I was even in college, that was like not a day to celebrate beyond just like a day to go drinking. Like, it was just like go to the bars and get wasted. I have such a different like appreciation and understanding for Cinco de Mayo now, but like feel like I have so much more work I can do around understanding the meaning of that day. And here's the funny thing. A lot of individuals I've spoken to around that are like, it's really not as big of a deal as like Americans make it out to be. Yeah. So it's, again, something that has been appropriated, but like owning the fact that like when I was, 10 to 12 years ago, like was actively celebrating a day that I had no idea what I was doing. Right. These are a part of my past. It's who I am. And I can't change what has happened or what I've said, because this is such a tangent. I am so sorry if you're here, like you're here and you're like, where am I now? But like, this is the thing. We have to actively unlearn and stop ourselves and go, okay, why did I do that? And for me, the reason I almost used the word powwow is because that is something growing up, a lot of people would say that. They'd say, all right, everyone, let's, gather up, let's do this. And that is just a word that is still obviously
part of the lexicon. Yeah.
Correct. And so I want to first and foremost apologize to anyone who's listening who's like, that was not the way that you should have, like, that wasn't the word you should have used, because you're absolutely right. And I will continue to do better. And I would like to just have that on the record. So
I think that actually kind of like makes this conversation like a full circle thing, because part of the thing with social media is the fact that your words do matter, and unlearning just like snap of the fingers, quick, I'm just going to comment on this because I need to be a part of this conversation. I'm going to use this vitriol and these angry, offensive words and verbiage are part of the things that we all need to unlearn. Like in this instance, that was a word that you need to unlearn, but I've noticed that the other things that I say on a regular basis, like, are things that I need to unlearn.
Oh, I've said the word weird in this podcast a few times, and I've actually started to have that conversation with others about what why that is a word that I shouldn't be using. And there are just a lot of there's one of the things that I will say I personally struggle with significantly is not ableist language, basically, and that weird is one that falls within that. I'm looking things up as we go because now, as we say, things just go on. The thing is I have to always remember, words, we talk about this, words matter, language matters, and they can build people up and they can tear people down, and they can appropriate, they can take away from, they can belittle, they can demean, they can inspire, they can do a lot of things, and our active choices in the words that we use are important. They're so important. And I, like I said, I could have told Sasha, hey, could you please edit that out and just move on with my day? But I don't know if I would have actually felt good about that. I think I would have probably felt well, great, now everyone else doesn't know what I did, but I still have that.
Right.
So I think it's okay sometimes to just call yourself out and be look, I screwed up there, and I promise, and I do promise, I that is something that I got to keep working on. Dang, I am nowhere near where I want to be with that, because when I am unconsciously speaking, that is a word that my brain is still use this one. Brain and myself have to have a conversation about why that's got to stop.
Yeah.
And I thought I was in a better spot with that than I am, but I'm not. So here's what's interesting about what Sasha said, though, of how this comes full circle, is I have actually had conversations with individuals who have come back after the fact and been after I had some time to sit with what I said, I regret it, or I wish I wouldn't have, or I wish I would have approached it differently. I really wish I wouldn't have used those words. And I think it's okay to have growth. I am totally okay with somebody saying, yep, screwed up. That is bad.
Honestly, that's one of the, I think, in my personal opinion and my personal life, the most important keys to growth for myself. Cleaning up my side of the street and owning the shit that I do wrong instead of waiting around. Here's the thing, and this was, I don't know where it came from, but it always has stuck with me. Do you want to be right, or do you want the situation to be correct? There's a difference between being right and doing the correct action. And that's not exactly how the saying goes.
Well,
but I think it's super important to recognize that, because I think that sometimes, especially I notice it on the internet, but just in everyday life, people want to be right so badly that they ignore all the factual information that backs up one thing or the other. And being right isn't the end all be all. No. You can be wrong, and that's okay, because you're going to grow from it and you're going to learn something new, whether that be about yourself or whether that be about a situational occurrence.
And as somebody like myself who likes to be liked, I don't like people not liking me, but obviously not everyone can like me. That would be asinine to believe that to be, but that is just who I am. For the record, I've always, I have this, desire to be liked. So I understand that there's also this thing that I can do where I put up a wall and a perception of what I want people to know about me and how I want them to perceive me. And that is actually sometimes the most dangerous thing I can do, because in this case, let's take what I just did. And I almost used a word that I could have edited out and continued to put up a wall and a facade of what I wanted you to know about me. But what that doesn't do is it doesn't change me. It makes you think I am a certain way, and it makes you feel good about me, but it doesn't change me. And that is the biggest thing, is I have to keep owning the fact that I suck sometimes. And I'm not saying that to have any of you tell me I'm better. I'm just acknowledging that there are times where I'm damn it, why am I like this? But I am like this because of, it's the environment I was raised in. It's because of the color of my skin. It's because I have a point of privilege in my life. there are so many things that play into who I am, and I cannot control. And I think, actually what's funny about this, and this goes into this conversation about like why something like Lauren Stivern's shirt is so triggering to some people, is you have a lot of people who immediately want to fight back. All lives matter. Everyone matters. Mm-hmm. You are actually being racist by saying only this matters. And it's like, we've had this conversation.
Yeah.
All lives cannot matter until Black lives do. And saying that Black lives matter is not in any way saying that your life does not matter. Mm-hmm. And not at all. It is just saying that like myself, I have not had to overcome my skin color in really anything in my life. Mm-hmm. I now as a woman have my own set of like different understandings because like, well, white men have a much, in my opinion, much easier than, we talk about like shit, like just a couple of days ago, like equal pay day or something. And like, we talk about how women are still in the year of 2021, only making 80 cents on the dollar for every man. Yeah. Like, I have my own things. This is the thing, is no one is telling you that your life isn't hard or that you have not faced challenges. No one is saying that you have not come up against adversity or that you have not had somebody, inappropriately make assumptions about you. Mm-hmm. That is something that like we all face. Yeah. But there's no reason that a shirt should have triggered so many people in the way that it did. And it was disappointing to see that reaction. And yes, Nebraska could have gone through its comments and hidden more things. And that is entirely like, that is a discussion where it's like, if you were to ask me, well, what should they have done? I'm trying to imagine if I was in their shoes and if I was the person, how equipped do they feel to make some of those judgment calls? Right. Because here's the thing. I post things on Hail Varsity's Instagram or different things where I know that's going to tick some people off. Yeah. So last summer when Kyron Williams, he held a rally in support of Black Lives Matter, and I was there. We got some photos and we shared them. Yeah. Because in my opinion, it's a newsworthy story. You have a former Husker leading a rally in Lincoln, Nebraska. He's joined by Eric Crouch, who was there very vocally as an ally for him. Mm-hmm. This should be shared. Yes. And choosing to share the images that I did, I could have, for the record, I could have just picked the like nice ones of like them hugging and like everyone like smiling. And instead I picked the photos of like one where Kyron has his fist in the air, leading a group of people who have signs that say Black Lives Matter. And people were like, I mean, we had people who were threatening that they were going to take subscriptions from us. And you do start to like, that's the thing too, when you're a social media manager, is when people are threatening your bottom line, you do start to like get a little overwhelmed, because like the last thing that like, great. So you're going to go call my business and you're going to go tell them like, I am taking my support because of this. And the person who did it is her. That's shitty, because now I'm like, well, first and foremost, a lot of times when people threaten that, which this is something that I've learned in my experiences, they're usually not subscribers and they've usually never subscribed. It's kind of the same people who are like, I'm never buying Nike before and haven't purchased a pair of Nikes in like 10 years. But it does suck where you're like, am I the reason that this business is now going to fail? But like, sometimes you just have to take a step back and be like, the greater, like what I believe to be the greater good is going to overcome, and that the people that are meant to be here will find us and support, and I don't want to build echo chambers by any means, but like, I just have to like have faith that like the people who are willing to listen and to be there and to not do that will keep coming. Yeah. But dang, if it's not hard some days. And so I get it. And so sitting here and thinking about like, would I have shared it? Hell yeah, I would have shared it. Yeah. What do you do after that? I guess I'm not like actively like, well, I do cover games. Yeah. I don't know. It's shitty because it usually falls on one person.
Yeah. Yeah. During that time period. Yeah. So like when, especially on Facebook, you can tell once the game started because the tone of the comments drastically changes.
100%.
And I mean, we could spend literally probably 5 episodes trying to dissect why people feel the need to interact this way with any page, really, just because it happens to happen on the internet. But I think that, I mean, I don't know what else you do in this situation other than what they did. I mean, you try to, I think that for the most part, I don't think that it's censoring anybody by taking away or hiding comments that are derogatory in nature. No. And in my opinion, by saying keep politics out of sports, like, it's not like derogatory in the outward way that most people think of that term, but like, I mean, you're saying that to try to start a fire. Mm-hmm. And I think that the thing that most people don't take into consideration, there was a conversation not long ago about how to approach a situation somewhat similar to this. It wasn't exactly this situation, but at what point do you start hiding or taking comments away? Mm-hmm. And I was like, there's always going to be people who want to stir the pot and get some kind of attention by making an inflammatory comment. I think you have to draw the line somewhere. I mean, and you could post a picture of a baby and someone's gonna be like, "Oh, cute baby," just to be a jerk.
Yeah, people. I mean, like, heck, we posted like this is the stuff. Like, people get upset about everything, like literally everything. People were upset because they saw Dedrick Mills and they're like, "He's not on the team anymore." It's like, well, yeah, no kidding. It's the comment specifically says it's an old video. Like, people get mad and like there's just not much you can do in that case.
Right.
But here, to kind of maybe like wrap this piece of it up for me personally in my perspective, I remember when Michael Rose-Ivy and a few other Huskers kneel during the national anthem at Northwestern. There was a lot of debate, not just for the record, not just with Hale Varsity, but across all media outlets of like how to cover something like this. Do you cover it? What do you do? And like, we did cover it, and we covered it from this, not only this moment happened, we published Michael Rose-Ivy's message in full, didn't edit any of it for the record, which I've had conversations with people about because they asked, because in his speech, he used the N-word. And why was it, I guess the way we approached it is, why was it my job? Like, why am I, in that case, why would I censor him?
Right.
These are the words that he wrote, and for the record, shared. Like, it wasn't like he shared these words in a written letter as well. Yes. He tweeted them out. So if I censored them, I'm censoring what he was intentionally sharing.
Yes.
Now, we've had that conversation because there's been other quotes where a word gets censored, and it's like, well, you didn't censor it here. The F word being an example of it as another one. But like in the case of like the N word, it depends on what the intention and the impact, because the intention and the impact are different. And in that case, like taking away from Michael Rose-Ivy and what he was saying was not my job. It was not my place to change how he was intending the impact of his words. Because if I change it, I am changing the impact. I'm toning it down. I'm making it safer. I'm making people more comfortable. Right. And that was really where we went. And, I'm proud of how we handled that situation. And that was several years ago now. But like, I think back and like, there's so much more we could do. There's so many more ways to cover these things. There's so much, like we talked with Drake Keeler about this, like the fact that we were not actively at that rally that Warren Siverin's shirt came from. There's so much that like I feel we could do more. We could be better. And if you're somebody who's like, this is great, how do I support you in this? When you see, and I'm not telling you this, and this is kind of, that did feel a little virtue signaling, but like, I mean this, if you see organizations or you see publications or you see outlets who are telling the stories that you want to see, subscribe to them. Give them your money, because here's the thing, what is really, really actively hard, and we're super fortunate at Hale Varsity to have a lot of freedom to tell the stories we want to, but a lot of people don't want, this is happening with the NCAA. People will tell you women's sports don't drive. They don't drive the subscriptions. They don't drive the revenue. They don't drive the interest. Here's the thing. Did you know, and this is wildly circulating right now, that for every woman who is in the NCAA tournament right now, in the Sweet 16, they have like something over like 300,000 followers on average per young woman on social media. The men have like 180,000 comparatively. Women sell, and I'm talking in the most powerful sense of that. Women move the needle. You have to show up with your dollar and show that, because like when we're talking about why you're going to, so do what you did, like that, retweet that, show the support for it. Be like, hell yeah, Lauren Stivrins, hell yeah, Husker volleyball, because you have to be louder and you have to be stronger and you have to speak up more than the people who are going to come for that. Right. So to those of you who hopped in the comments and were like, hey, you need to shut up, thank you for speaking up, because a lot of times the majority are not the ones speaking up, because it's like, well, we all kind of agree with each other. You got to speak up. Yeah. So if you're asking, like, what can you do to support, put your money where the people that you think, hey, they're doing a good job. So speaking of, like, support, we actually had an email from his name is Tyler. He reached out to introduce himself. He is an alumni of the Cornhusker Marching. He said Marching Red, so marching band. But I believe that's just, like, their formal name. But he had basically said, like, is there any way that you can provide updates on women's sports, like specifically like Nebraska women's sports? It feels like there's something missing in the market when it comes to that. What's super challenging about that, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks, Tyler, is that I want to do that, but also want to keep these podcasts evergreen enough. So I've been trying to think of like how to handle this, because I actually really love this suggestion, is keeping people aware. So let's just talk really quick about the things you need to care about in women's sports right now. And I think they matter in the future. So if you're a Nebraska volleyball fan, by the time you listen to this, you will have known already, but like Nebraska volleyball's meeting with Penn State has been canceled due to COVID-19 concerns. Super, super bummed about that, but understand it's obviously for the safe and the health and safety of the student athletes. This has been a very tough volleyball season. I'm disappointed that I won't get to see Nebraska at Devaney one last time. I have enjoyed covering them. I want to just share, I guess, and maybe Tyler, tell me if like, email us back and tell me if like this is somewhat helpful. I want to share with you all, now that no one's going to be able to actually be at a volleyball game this year, my experience. I don't know what the future holds for this team. I don't know what the future holds for Lauren Stivrins and Lexi's son and any of the seniors, and if they will move on or if they will choose to come back. Whatever the case is, I'm really, really sad that people aren't going to get to see this team in person, because at least I know in the NCAA tournament, but I'm talking about at Devaney. This team has been such a joy to cover, because they are so full of life. They're so confident in who they are. When Lauren Stivrins stepped off that bus with her Black Lives Matter shirt, it's because that is who Lauren Stivrins is. She wants to be an ally. She wants to be a voice, and she is powerful. She owns her power. That's what this team is. They own their power. And getting to watch all of these little moments with them, just in the way that they interact with one another, the way that they celebrate points with one another, the way that they celebrate an ace together, like watching all of these moments. I have no idea what the future holds for this team, if they will be back together in the same way that they are now, or if others will depart, how they will do in the NCAA tournament. It doesn't matter. This will always be, for me personally, a very impactful team. So if you're wanting to know what you need to focus on with this team, just know that like this team will live, in my opinion, in history in some degree, no matter what ends up happening in the NCAA tournament. Now, if you're somebody who does want to know when the NCAA tournament does begin, that we're coming up on April, which is hard to believe. By the time you listen to this, it could already be April. Normally, if you are not a big volleyball fan, which you should be, that is in December, which is now moved to April. It's all going to take place in Omaha. Something that you should know is that they are all saying that the NCAA should move it back to 64 teams. They decreased the field to 48 due to COVID-19. But John Cook, Wisconsin's volleyball coach, others have basically spoken up and said if the NCAA men's basketball tournament and women's tournament can move forward with the normal number of teams that they would have in any other year, why can't we? I think that's really interesting. I don't know if I think they will change the field number at this point, but keep an eye on that because I find that to be a really, really interesting storyline. The selection show, April 4th. Put that in your calendar. Sunday, April 4th, 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPNU. First round begins April 14th. That's a Wednesday, and it will go from there. All of these are streamed on ESPN3, ESPNU, ESPN2. How do you get them on ESPN? Show up and watch them. Support them. Same thing. The NCAA women's basketball tournament is the last thing I'll say about this. Crushing it. Mm-hmm. ESPN has covered this so well. Watch these games. One of the most joyful things I witnessed was the Baylor-UConn game, watching Twitter watch this game, because it felt like the way that people were responding felt like we were watching any of the football games or men's games that have previously been what consumed Twitter. It was nice to see this happening for a women's sport. So keep supporting women's sports. If you have a team in your area that is playing soccer right now, go watch. Tyler, I appreciate you wanting more women's coverage, and I'm going to keep thinking about how we can do that, because I think providing information on how to watch things, but doing so in a evergreen way is a great idea. So thank you for sending that. If you have suggestions, you can email us at mindyourownpodcast@hillvarsity.com. I'm at Erin Sorensen. I almost said Erin Sasha. I'm at Erin Sorensen on Twitter. She's at Sasha72. Thank you for letting us ramble.
Yeah.
For an hour about literally everything. Go get your COVID vaccines. Be mindful with your words. Be kind to yourself. Show yourself some grace. But go out and kick some ass.
Yeah.
And watch some women's sports because they kick ass.
They do.
And we will be back next week. And we'll just keep doing our best.
Yes.
We'll talk to you then.
Bye.
A Hurrdat Media Production.